watching the award-winning GHS-TV, a nationally recognized student television station.
The battle for control of the White House and Congress ends this week as millions of Americans go to the polls to determine the next leaders of the United States. Hello, and welcome to this special edition of GHS-TV's award-winning talk show, Crosstalk. I'm your moderator, Kaitlyn Poindexter. To say it's been a wild 2020 is an understatement. The U.S. has endured a presidential impeachment, a deadly pandemic, an economic collapse, a social justice movement, and looming in the background has been the 2020 presidential election. On this special edition of Crosstalk, my co-host Madisyn and I will talk with elected leaders of the community, including Germantown Mayor Mike Palazzolo, Tennessee State Senator Raumesh Akbari, State House Representative Mark White, and his challenger, Jerri Green. For the first time in election history, more people are expected to vote earlier than on Election Day. Election commissions across the country prepared for months for this influx of mail-in ballots and in-person early voters. Here to talk about what Shelby County is doing to keep the voters safe at the polls and making sure every mail-in ballot is counted is Steve Stampson, chairman of the Shelby County Election Commission. Mr. Stampson, we are so glad you were able to join us today.
Thank you so much for asking me to be here.
I'd like to begin with discussing the staggering number of early voters. On day 10 of early voting, Shelby County surpassed the total number of people who voted in the 2016 election with 252,000 votes, and it's only increased since then. What are your thoughts on these numbers?
These numbers are staggering numbers. Compared to years past, we're up to about 266,000 voters, and as of about 2:30 today, we've only had 7,000 voters today. But we looked, half of our voters, we have normally 600,000 voters in Shelby County, and probably half of them will vote early, which is very, very unusual for early voting. Usually it's around 20%.
How did your commission help prepare poll workers for the influx?
Well, we hired a number of people to work the polls. We have right at between 90 and 100 temporary employees, and we have between 300 early voting employees and election day employees.
Well, I'd like to turn now to the hot button issue of mail-in ballots. How many people have already voted by mail, and how does it compare to past presidential elections?
Well, we have had, we're expecting to have about 30,000 absentee ballots sent back to us by Election Day. And in the past elections, in 2016, we had 8,000.
The president has cast doubt on mail-in ballots, saying that there is rampant fraud throughout the system. Is that the case in Shelby County?
No, I don't see any fraud in Shelby County, because in Shelby County and in the state of Tennessee, you have to request a mail-in ballot, an absentee ballot. And there are many different reasons that because of age, if you have a disability or whatever, you can get an absentee ballot. Then we indicate on the computer that we've sent you, when you send in the request, then we send you a document that you fill out and request your ballot. Then when it gets back, we indicate in the computer, and then we mail you the ballot. You complete the ballot and send that back to us, and then we indicate that we've received it back from you. So, we know who we sent a ballot. So I don't I don't see that there's going to be any fraud in any mail-in ballots.
How does the election committee protect mail-in ballots from being tampered with?
Okay, when we get the ballot back, it's in like 2 envelopes. It's in a large envelope, which we open. We remove the small envelope from it, indicate who we've received it from. We used to put it in ballot boxes, but now we have a large container that we put all of them in. At the end of the day, we lock that up, that container up, and with 2 different locks. One is a Republican lock, one is a Democrat lock.
Is there anything else you'd like to add regarding that question?
Okay, yes. It takes a Republican election commissioner and a Democratic election commissioner to open those boxes on election morning. And we can't start counting them until 7 o'clock when the polls open.
Well, those who aren't allowed to vote by mail must do so in person. In light of the COVID-19 pandemic, how is the Election Commission keeping people safe while they're casting their vote?
Well, we are requiring social distancing, of course. And when someone comes into the precinct, if they don't have a mask, we give them a mask. We have plexiglass shields between our employees and the voter. And the voter comes in, shows his ID, signs his affidavit, is given his card, and he goes to a voting machine and casts his ballot. And then he leaves, and it's a very quick process once you get in there. And like I said, we've had lines of people, but each day the lines have decreased. And I'm sure today is going to be, with this weather that we've got, we don't have many voters today. But I expect everyone that I've talked to has just been happy as could be. They've not had to wait long, and the process has moved quickly.
But President Trump has made it clear that he does not support voting by mail. He has, however, promoted the practice of poll watching. What exactly is poll watching, and is it legal here in Tennessee?
Yes, it is legal here, and poll watchers are appointed by candidates and by political party. They can appoint 2 poll watchers for each precinct, but only 1 poll watcher is allowed in the precinct at a time. And a candidate, when they appoint their poll watchers, they have to give us a list, and we have to receive it. In this election, it would be Friday, would be the last day. So we know who all the poll watchers are.
Do you have any tips for any first-time voters?
Well, voting is a privilege that everyone should take advantage of. A first-time voter, I mean, he's new, he doesn't know what he's doing. He really doesn't need to be accompanied by anyone to show him, because when he gets there, we will tell him exactly and guide him right through the process. And it's a very simple process. So, I mean, I don't see everybody should vote.
Well, Mr. Stampson, I apologize for those previous interruptions, but thank you for talking with us. I hope that Election Day and the days after go very smoothly.
Hope they do too, and thank you for having me.
After the break, a local state representative makes his final pitch for re-election. He joins Madisyn Ricks next. Stay tuned.
GHS-TV started in 1982, and it was just a couple of cameras, a couple of on-air personality, and it's really grown into what you see today. It's a multi-million-dollar studio with top-of-the-line technology.
Being able to operate, all of the machinery in the control room, being able to use all of our software and hardware that we have around the studio is a great skill, because this is top-of-the-line equipment.
I feel like this class has brightened my horizon. It's something that I never thought I would be doing, especially as a student.
GHS-TV is probably one of the most hands-on experiences a student will ever get in their lifetime.
Welcome back to Crosstalk. Nothing really has just the vibe that we have here.
Especially after you finished, you get a real rush of, wow, I just did that.
By the time a student graduates from Germantown High School, they will know pretty much every position there is, from producing to directing to on-air work.
You learn time management, you learn organization, you learn how to work with people, how to better communicate with people.
We put a lot on them, and they have to be able to have the responsibility and the knowledge to get everything that we ask them.
I had very little experience, so in the past 3 years, the skills that I've learned have absolutely exponentially grown.
The class has actually helped me figure out that I want to go to college for journalism.
When a student graduates, they are the best possible version of themselves that they can be.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.
For more information about the Kappa program, visit ghskappa.com or call 755-7775. You're watching the award-winning GHS-TV, a nationally recognized student television station.
Welcome back to Crosstalk. I'm Madisyn Riggs. With an extensive background in education, State Congressman Mark White has spent most of his 10 years in office working to improve the state's educational system. White is running for a sixth term in office, representing House District 83, which includes Germantown, Bartlett, Cordova, and portions of East Memphis. We are honored to have him on the show today. Mr. White, thank you so much for being here today.
Yes, thank you, Madisyn.
This year, obviously, campaigning is very different. How have you and your campaign staff adapted during the pandemic?
Well, in many ways, as we started out, we were very aware of, the best way you campaign in a state representative race is door to door. So we were aware of that. But what we did, we attempted that. Many people said, go ahead and do it anyway. And so we would hang our brochure on the door handle, ring the doorbell, and back up about 10, 15 feet. And if the people would come to the door, we would talk to them from that distance. And really, we have found it really about the same as in every year. We get about the same number of people who come to the door, and they're very pleasant, and they like to talk to you. So that part didn't change. And then since early voting started, many people are very friendly and want to talk to you in line. So it's been a very pleasant experience this year, better than what I anticipated a couple months ago.
In talking with your constituents this election season, what issues are they most concerned about, and how will you champion those issues if you are reelected?
Well, the biggest issues, I chair the House Education Committee in Nashville, and the biggest issue is the disruption in education, the virtual, and schools trying to go back either entirely virtual or hybrid, or trying to get children back in the classroom. So the biggest thing has been just the disruption and how hard the teachers are trying to manage the whole thing. It's been challenging. They're working very hard. I'm a big fan of the children being back in the classroom with a good teacher present, but that's not always possible. We know that, so everyone's trying to figure out the best thing. So the disruption in education is probably one of the biggest challenges we have right now.
For the third time, you have a challenger, Jerri Green. She is running on the fact that she is a mother who supports funding education, affordable health care, and ending the gun violence crisis. Can you speak to your different perspectives and what makes you the best candidate for re-election?
Right. Really, there's not a lot. In politics, things get out there and people try to make differences. I supported Governor Haslam's Medicaid expansion, trying to find a solution a number of years ago, and we're still trying to find a solution because too many of our working uninsured or working people are uninsured. So I'm very pro on that. I'm also common sense gun legislation. You can be a Second Amendment person, but I still think you need to act responsibly. I prefer that you have a gun permit if you go carry one in public. And we passed a bill a few years back called Gun Permit Light. We just go online and get a gun permit. I think if you go carry a gun out in public, you need to know how it feels when you carry it and if you ever have to fire it. So I'm supportive of common sense gun legislation. And but most of the things, we're all trying to find solutions. So many ways, we're like in so many ways. And as far as education, I'm very supportive of public education. I've chaired the House Education Committee for 7 years. I used to be a teacher and a principal. And we're just trying to find the right answers. A lot of times I have supported the ESA or the school voucher, but only because I believe strongly in a parent's right to choose what is best for their child's education. And too many people, they get trapped in a failing system or a failing school, and they need a way out. So I just supportive of a parent's right to choose.
As a chairman of the Education Committee, you oversee policies and laws that impact me and my peers directly. What education laws are you especially proud of?
I think one of the things is we're proud of is that we're trying to make sure that when our young people go through K through 12, when they get out in at 18 years old, grade 12, that they are ready to move on to higher education. So we adopted some standards that were college and career ready a number of years ago, which to help our young people make sure that they're either prepared to go into the workforce or to go on to 2 years or 4 years of college or to go get a VOTEC degree. By the way, most of the money in the jobs right now are in VOTEC degrees in medical device industry or welding or plumbing or HVAC, mechanical. All these things are very good salaries. And so also making pathways where young people could come out of high school and go into those trades that they so desire.
You recently held hearings about education in the pandemic. Online learning was a major concern. Here in Shelby County Schools, we are all virtual. What were some of the concerns discussed during the meetings?
Well, the concerns discussed were how many people may not have online. A lot of Tennessee, outside the urban areas, they don't have the high-speed internet. And even in our own city, where many parents, and I know that the schools are trying to offer hotspots and things, but many of our families, even though the internet is available, they're because of cost, they don't have it. So we're very concerned. That's why we had the summer study to ask that question, how is the virtual education going, or how's the back to school going? But we were hit with this virus, and everyone's trying to find answers, and we're not there yet, but everyone's working on it very hard. And so, but virtual education is still a challenge for us.
Your campaign is based on the advancement of education for all students, Tennessee and beyond. If you are reelected, what are your plans for the future of the educational system?
Thank you very much. One of the main things is I would like to see us going back in. Because of the COVID administration, they had to take $1 billion out of our budget. But going back in, if the budget looks well, I would like to put back in the main thing of a teacher pay raise, or if we can't do recurring, let's at least do a bonus this year. Our teachers have had to be pulled from one end to the other and trying to figure this out. So I'd like to see pay increases for our teachers, but I'd also like to see us keep moving forward and not, I don't want us to give up because too many is too important. Most of our children, especially right now that haven't gone back to school, we're coming up on this December almost a year of not being in the classroom, and so we've got to get going again. We've got to get our children back in the classroom, and we need to have our support our teachers.
Mr. White, thank you again for appearing on the show. It was a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate y'all very much, and you're doing a great job over at the high school. Thank you.
As chairman of the House Education Committee, I led efforts to fully fund K through 12 schools, and I also supported 5 teacher pay raises. I'm Mark White, and I'm asking for your vote.
After the break, we'll hear from Mr. White's challenger, Jerri Green, about why she is running to unseat him. Stay with us.
We have 4 major vocal ensembles at Germantown High School. There's a large chorale with about 50 to 60 students, a women's chorus, our chamber choir, which is an elite ensemble of 18 singers, and a contemporary a cappella group, which is about 16 singers.
It's really nice to be in a room full of people who share your passion and who want to learn and make every song as beautiful as it possibly can be.
I really try to instill in my students the importance of connecting with the literature, that they have to go outside of the box and actually understand what they're singing about. Thank you.
This program has really pushed me. It's shown me a lot of my insecurities and how to grow past those.
Many times we'll gather around the piano to build that sense of camaraderie, to be able to hear each other better, to interact with each other and make music together. Work together, hold that solid. Go.
Then we genuinely love music. We sing because we want to and not because our Mr. Hayner is telling us.
2 beats, you come in. 1 and 2. Music empowers us to come together as a group. I feel like this generation has become so focused on me. And music is us.
For more information about the Kappa program, visit ghskappa.com or call 755-7775. You're watching the award-winning GHS-TV, a nationally recognized student television station.
Welcome back to this special election edition of Crosstalk. I'm Madisyn Riggs. Like State Representative Mark White, education is a centerpiece to his challenger, Jerri Green's campaign. And with 3 young children, she has some skin in the game. Green is a former public defender and is currently director of community outreach for the Community Legal Center. She joins us now. Mrs. Green, thank you for taking the time to talk with us. I know you are a busy person.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you giving me some time here today.
This is your first campaign and it's during a pandemic. How have you adapted?
Well, a lot of our presence has had to be online, which is great because I had a strong online presence before the pandemic started. But we also switched some things around, like during the lockdown, I had over 100 volunteers handwrite postcards that we're just now mailing out. So we've just had to be a little bit more creative. We're also doing things in COVID-safe ways. You know, we're making sure any events we have, we wear masks and we social distance and we take all the precautions we can to make sure that our volunteers and anyone in the public are safe too.
You are campaigning to unseat State Representative Mark White. Why are you running and why now?
Well, when I was asked to run, I kind of thought that the people who approached me were crazy because I have a full-time job. I am an attorney. I'm an advocate now at the Community Legal Center. I have 3 young children. They are 3, 9, and 10. And my life felt pretty busy and pretty full. But I kept asking myself, if not me, then who? And if not now, then when? And the truth is, because of those 3 kids, those are my special interests. I care about what's happening in our community. I care about whether our schools are being fully funded. I care about what's happening with our environment. I care about gun safety legislation. And so part of my job of being a parent is also stepping up and doing what's hard and showing them that sometimes you have to do that. And so that's why I decided to run. It's for them, it is for their future, and for the future of my hometown that I love very much.
Your campaign slogan is "One Tough Mother." Explain the meaning behind it and the message you are trying to get out there by using this slogan.
I want a representative who understands what it's like to be a working parent right now.
A working mom.
A mom of young kids.
One tough mother.
One tough mama.
One tough mother.
One tough mother.
Well, a lot of politics is not very fun. So we wanted to have just like a small bit of fun with this. And it really does encapsulate what I believe I am. If you ask my children, they would tell you I'm one tough mother. But I am a person who has been tested and gone through trials in my life. I've done things like run the St. Jude Marathon. I was a defense attorney at 201 Poplar for many years. You name it, I've seen it, I've done it. And my heart and my soul and what I care about most in this world are my children. So that sort of encapsulated everything that I was and why I was running. And I kind of just wanted people to smile a little when they saw it, so that when they think about me and they think about this campaign, there's so much hard stuff going on in the world right now, like just to have a small thing that is a little humorous.
We posed this same question to Mr. White. In talking to the constituents in the district, what issues matter most to them, and how would you champion those issues if elected?
I think the very first thing that's on everyone right now is response to COVID. They want to see leaders that will follow experts, scientists, the data, the facts, and implement things immediately that will help get us back to normal, help reopen our schools and reopen our economy. And so that's the number one issue I hear. Sort of combined with that is our education, because of course schools being closed is a burden on a lot of families and a lot of students and a lot of teachers. So that's very important, but we're also seeing the need for more resources in our public schools. And so making sure that we have those schools fully funded, that the teachers are getting their well-deserved pay raises, those are the top two issues. The other thing that I would say I hear most often is just people are kind of tired of the circus. They are ready to have public faith restored in public officials. They want to see common sense and compassion in their representatives. And so I represent not incumbency for decades. I represent a new change of pace that is focused on kindness and facts.
What are some of the issues you are passionate about?
Well, I'm very passionate about public education, not only because I was a graduate of public schools here in Memphis, but because I have 3 young children and they are in public schools. So education to me is very important. I grew up very poor and made my way all the way through Georgetown Law School. And to me, education was a way to achieve the American dream. So it is very important to me. I'm also very passionate about gun sense legislation. I've had gun violence impact my life 3 times. I lost my grandparents, my very best friend from the time I was 2nd grade till law school, and a colleague just last year to gun violence. And now I'm raising 3 children that have to go through active shooter drills at school. And I don't think we need to live like this. So to me, that issue actually isn't political, it's very personal. Those are probably the 2 things I'm most passionate about. But truly, if it is climate change in the environment or fully funding the arts or online bullying, I always look at it through the frame of a mother and what I would want for my children. And that's how I approach every issue.
You are against school vouchers and education savings accounts, which was deemed unconstitutional earlier this year. Supporters say it gives parents and students a say in their education. What is your issue with them?
It sounds nice to have school choice, but it's not something that's new. They've tried it in over 9 different states. There's been intensive studies, and every place that they've tried it, the actual learning of students when they go back and retest them goes down. That's because people get into public education or get into the education sphere for profit and not to see what the children are learning, not to improve their education. It also takes resources away, much needed resources, especially right now, from our public schools. Those tax dollars will not be replaced. At the same time, it doesn't fully pay for any of the private schools that we have here in Memphis. So that means families would then have to make that up, or private vulture schools, online schools would pop up that are just in it for profit. And so I don't want to see any of these things happen. I want to see our public schools funded better. We're funded one of the lowest in the nation right now. Our 3rd grade reading level is at 37%. The reason that matters is because they look at that percentage to project how many prison beds we need in the future. We've got to work on improving our public schools. We cannot do that if we take tax dollars away from them.
Well, Ms. Green, thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope there are lots of future voters out there in your audience or people who are voting this year. As soon as you turn 18, please get registered. Make sure your friends get registered. And if you are 18, you haven't voted already, get out and vote. Take your friends, text 3 friends, text your parents and their friends. Make sure everybody is participating. We're seeing record numbers, and I love it. I think whether you are a Democrat or a Republican, it is so important that you get out and exercise your right to vote, because that is your voice in this government.
When this is over, let's promise each other we will never again take for granted how much we belong to each other, how to be good to each other, how much we rely on each other, and how truly interconnected we all are. We can't change the events happening in our world. What we can change is how we meet them. On the other side, let's not forget the lessons we've learned together so we can build a better future for us all. One where teachers and schools are valued, one where healthcare is accessible and affordable, one where the work of every member of our society is valued, one where our children can simply play with their friends in the park again. I'm Jerri Green. I'm running for Tennessee State House Rep in District 83 for my children's future and for yours.
When we come back, Kaitlyn talks with the state senator who is making a name for herself on the national stage.
GHS-TV started in 1982, and it was just a couple of cameras, a couple of on-air personality, and it's really grown into what you see today. It's a multi-million-dollar studio with top-of-the-line technology.
Being able to operate, all of the machinery in the control room, being able to use all of our software and hardware that we have around the studio is a great skill because this is top-of-the-line equipment.
I feel like this class has brightened my horizon. It's something that I never thought I would be doing, especially as a student.
GHS-TV is probably one of the most hands-on experiences a student will ever get in their lifetime.
Welcome back to Crosstalk. Nothing really has just the vibe that we have here.
Especially after you finished, you get a real rush of, wow, I just did that.
By the time a student graduates from Germantown High School, they will know pretty much every position there is, from producing to directing to on-air work.
You learn time management, you learn organization, you learn how to work with people, how to better communicate with people.
We put a lot on them, and they have to be able to have the responsibility and the knowledge to get everything that we ask them.
I had very little experience, so in the past 3 years, the skills that I've learned have absolutely exponentially grown.
The class has actually helped me figure out that I want to go to college for journalism.
When a student graduates, they are the best possible version of themselves that they can be.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.
For more information about the CAPA program, visit ghscapa.com or call 755-7775. You're watching the award-winning GHS-TV, a nationally recognized student television station.
Welcome back to Crosstalk. At 36 years old, Ramesh Akbiri is easily the youngest member of the Tennessee State Senate. She has made a name for herself at the local and state levels, as well as nationally, since she got into politics 8 years ago. Joining me now is State Senator from District 29, Ramesh Akbiri. Senator Akbiri, we are so glad you could come on the show with us today.
Thank you. Happy to be here with you guys.
I'd like to start with the 2020 Democratic National Convention, where you were actually part of the keynote address. Can you describe your experience and tell us how you got involved?
Please welcome State Representative Raumesh Akbari from Tennessee.
It was pretty neat. In 2016, I spoke at the Democratic National Convention, but it was in person. In 2020, it was virtual, so it was definitely a different experience. I think we all are adapting to the circumstances we're in.
Welcome.
Welcome. Welcome
To the second night of the Democratic National Convention.
This is a different kind of convention.
Look at the camera and smile.
And this
is a different kind of keynote.
is a different kind of keynote. This year, all of us are on stage, and we've got a lot to say.
Early on, I was a supporter of Joe Biden, probably over the summer of 2019, and kind of been active with the campaign for various reasons. And so I think they were looking for folks who are newer in politics. They call us rising stars. And we gave remarks. They sent us all a camera kit. It was actually pretty neat. We all recorded different versions of the speech, and then they kind of pushed it all together. So I didn't know what the final version of our remarks were going to look like until that night when everyone else watched it. But it was a neat experience. He's a candidate I believe in, and I was really happy to be a part of it.
Well, during the address, you honored Memphis nurses who came out of retirement to help treat COVID-19 patients.
The nurses in Memphis who came out of retirement to treat patients during this pandemic. You built this country.
Why was it so important to you to honor these specific frontline workers?
Well, I think COVID-19 was something that no one could have expected or anticipated. A lot of folks were privileged and able to kind of lock down and hunker down in their houses. But our nurses across this city were on the very front lines treating those with COVID-19, often not even aware fully of what it entailed or the best way to prevent it being kind of passed along to them, and then also even dealing with the shortage of PPE, personal protection equipment. So I wanted to lift them up. They are truly heroes. A lot of them came out of retirement just so that they themselves could serve. I have a colleague in the General Assembly who's a senator as well, and she had not been actually practicing as a nurse, and she came out and actually volunteered in New York and Texas and in Memphis. So I think for my remarks, if I was able to honor them and uplift them and thank them for the sacrifices they're making, I wanted to be able to do that.
Well, a lot has happened in 2020 besides the pandemic. I'm talking specifically about the Black Lives Matter movement. It's been reported that you will introduce a ban on no-knock warrants in honor of Breonna Taylor.
Senator Raumesh Akbari from Memphis said that in a tweet she plans to file legislation in the next General Assembly to end no-knock warrants here. A no-knock warrant is a type of search warrant that is just what it sounds like, authorizing police to enter a site without knocking or announcing themselves.
As a Democrat, how do you plan to work with Senate Republicans to try to pass this law?
Well, that really is the most important thing. As a Democrat in the super minority, I have to be able to build a coalition and get crossover appeal. I think that the ideas of having a no-knock warrant, one, they say that it will help police officers protect them so that folks will not perhaps shoot at them, and then also to preserve evidence. I think that needs to be examined. And certainly it's a conversation that I'm having with my colleagues across the aisle and also folks in law enforcement. So with any piece of legislation I pass, I want to deal and speak to those that are directly impacted by it, as well as build a bipartisan coalition. So that's what I plan on doing. We'll see where it goes. A lot of times legislation ends up starting with a study to see, what is the impact of the existing policy before we actually make changes to it. So we'll see what happens.
In addition to the committees you are on now, you are also part of the Tennessee Senate Democratic Caucus chair. What are some of the responsibilities, and what does that role mean to you?
Well, it was pretty neat to be selected as the Senate Democratic Caucus chair. I'm the first woman of color to sit in that position. Now, granted, we are a small caucus. There are only 5 of us, but we are the fantastic, fighting, fabulous 5, aka the Prius caucus, because we're small enough to meet in the Prius. But as a caucus chair, my primary function is to recruit candidates to run in races, those that value and hold dear the values of the Democratic Party, and then also to help raise funds for them. So that's actually something that I do every day now that we're in election season. I'm actually looking forward to November the 3rd, so things will slow down a little bit. But I think it's tremendous to be able to be in that type of leadership position, to bring Memphis directly to the table and be able to interact with the lieutenant governor, the governor, and the speaker of the House directly.
I'd like to go more into your background. You were first elected to the State House in 2013 following a special election. What did you do before you ran, and why did you run in the first place?
That's a great question. So I graduated. I went to Washington University in St. Louis for undergrad, St. Louis University for law school. Once I finished with my education, I came back to Memphis. I have a family business that I kind of grew up in. I was working for the family business, always knew that I wanted to be involved in politics and public policy. Didn't really know how to jump in. Certainly did not expect it to happen so quickly. But I ended up being mentored by State Representative Barbara Cooper, who represents a district downtown in the State House. And she mentored me, kind of shared with me that there was going to be an open election, and I ran. And I was able to be successful. Fortunately, 7 of us ran. I only won by a margin of 100 votes. So every vote really does matter. But I've really enjoyed it. I wanted to be a part of it because I felt like it's one thing to advocate in the community for change. It's another thing to actually be in the seat that can help shape the laws that our communities are governed by.
Well, during your time in the House and now in the Senate, what accomplishments are you most proud of?
In the House, it was a big deal for me. 3 things that I push in the House: criminal justice reform, strong public schools, and of course, economic development.
The economic benefit is huge. And anytime Memphis does well, the rest of the state does well. So I was pleased. And also it's in my district, so of course I'm happy about that. But I was pleased because it gives people in our community something to do. I mean, any given weekend you drive past there, the park is packed. Now imagine if it's enhanced and has all these awesome amenities, how great of an asset it'll be for our city.
When I started pushing a piece of legislation, the expungement fee in Tennessee was the 3rd highest in the country, $350 to expunge a record. My last year in the House, we were able to reduce that down to $180, which is a big difference. My first year in the Senate, the governor actually proposed as a part of his administrative package, eliminating the fee for certain offenses, which I thought was really good. So that's been, that was my favorite accomplishment, honestly. I've got to meet a ton of people. I've done several leadership programs where I've been able to travel to Australia, different parts of Europe, and China. But I think being able to know that I could pass legislation, or passing that type of legislation that could directly impact someone's life and help them get their lives back on track, that was the most exciting, most meaningful thing for me.
Well, Senator Akbari, this was such a great conversation. I hope we can have you on the show again in the future.
Certainly, and definitely keep doing what you're doing. Awesome job, and thank you for having me.
We now have to take a break. When we come back, we'll turn to local politics. Hear from the suburban mayor, whose board of aldermen is about to get a major shakeup.
And it's very fun to be in band, trust me. It's so much fun.
When I was an 8th grader and I saw them march, and I was like, wow, I need to be a part of this.
Our main performing group is the Varsity Band. That encompasses our marching band and our varsity concert band. We also have the jazz ensemble.
It's unique, so we're really lucky to have that.
I'm very methodical about teaching. I try to stay up to date because I want my students to have the best information that I can pass along to them.
He's excellent. He commands a sort of drive that we didn't exactly have.
I lead the class, but I also believe in the students self-assessing their work.
The leadership is led by the students. We lead most of the practices. It's basically just student-led.
And I think that's important for them to take that kind of ownership.
If you want to be a musician, you gain extremely important music skills, music techniques.
1, 2, 3.
There's so many opportunities for fellowship, and band is a family. And you develop that small community where you support each other, not only musically, but in many ways.
Really, without the band, the football games would be lame. Without the band, you wouldn't really have the pep rallies. The band is like a good foundation for the school spirit. If you want to join band, just do it.
I think band was the best part of my high school career.
For more information about the Kappa program, visit ghskappa.com or call 755-7775. You're watching the award-winning GHS-TV, a nationally recognized student television station.
Welcome back to this special episode of Crosstalk. I'm your moderator, Kaitlyn Poindexter. While America is going through a critical election year, the Germantown area is as well. With several Board of Aldermen and school board positions up for grabs, this is an important year for the leaders of Germantown. I'm excited to talk now with Germantown Mayor Mike Palazzolo about how the new faces could change the city of Germantown. Mayor Palazzolo, even though we're not in person, it's great to talk with you on another GHS-TV show.
Oh, it's good to be with you today, Kaitlyn. Thank you.
We are in the midst of a very competitive election season as several important seats are up for grabs. How do you feel about the fact that new faces will fill these leadership positions?
Well, actually very excited. It's always good to get fresh perspective on a board. We have a board of 5 aldermen, 1 mayor, and that group has to work together. And to have as many people that are interested in serving in our community for this election is pretty refreshing. I think a total in the alderman races and the 3 contested races, all 3 of them were contested, 7 people picked up petitions. And so there's good competition. Competition makes things work well in a free enterprise system, in capitalism, and it also works very well in public service. And so we're excited. Our administration would love to be able to work with whoever the victors are on November 3rd and after they're sworn into office. So we look forward to those opportunities to get to work with those new folks. There'll be 3 new people on the board. You know, to put it in perspective, the current board right now, the 2 people that are remaining, myself and Mary Ann Gibson, have a total of 22 years of experience, and the 3 newcomers will have a total of 0 years of experience. So we'll have fresh new blood on the board.
You were talking about the race for the Board of Aldermen. Well, positions 3, 4, and 5 are on the ballot this year. Can you explain the important role aldermen fill in the city?
Well, certainly, I'd be glad to. I spent 10 years in the position 3 seat as an alderman, and just a little bit of a civics lesson in a sense. The mayor is at the executive level, the executive branch. We do have municipal court, 2 judges that are elected, and that's the judicial branch. And then the legislative branch would be the aldermen. And so they're very important with helping set policy, helping direct policy, and ultimately helping to implement policy. The aldermen, the legislative branch, they make all the decisions, virtually all the decisions, as it relates to how we spend our very precious revenue in our city. So those things like police, fire, ambulance, schools, parks, all those things have to be funded. And the aldermen at the end of the day have a say in how those funds would be distributed and what priorities are set for the city. So their work is critical. The administrative, executive branch, we carry out, in essence, what they approve and we implement it. But without a good partner in the legislative branch, things would be kind of at a stalemate. So those positions, and again, having 10 years of served as an alderman, it gives me a unique perspective as a mayor. I know the decisions they have to make and why they have to make them. So that's kind of the way the 2 or the 3 entities work all together.
In addition to the alderman positions, there are 3 open school board seats. What impact will these new faces have on the school board?
Well, and again, a very similar example and situation. The school board and the school district are separately managed and they're a separate governmental unit. And as such, they have their own executive branch. It's a little bit different in the sense that you have a superintendent who's not elected, he is appointed, and you have a 5-member school board. The school board elects their chairperson to guide them in meetings. They have a vote. On our board of mayor and aldermen, I do not have a vote unless there's a tie. So it's very important that the school board works well together. The school board and the city of Germantown have to work well together because we are one of their funding bodies. So we provide revenue for our school district. We also have to approve the GMSD budget as well. So the 2 organizations have to work very, very well together. So the 3 people that will be on the school board, I think only 1 race is contested. 1 incumbent was unchallenged. And then there was an open seat that only one petition was picked up. So there'll be 2 new school board members on their school board, on their legislative body. We look very forward to being able to work well together with our school partners and friends.
Are there any concerns regarding the success of mail-in ballots?
Well, I mean, if you look at the national picture, the state picture, and the local picture as it relates to November 3rd and this election cycle, there is no debate. We're in a debate season in a sense. Candidates debate each other. There's no debate that this will be probably the largest turnout in modern American history. I think at one point in time, maybe in the early 1800s, something like 70% of the registered voters came forward and voted. A different time, different era, obviously. The safety of elections are so important, and people, and I've already early voted, people want to make sure that they're safe at their polls. In the era of COVID, as well as the safety I speak of. And I think the Shelby County Election Commission, in my experience, has been one where I felt very safe and protected while voting. When you go in, you have to have a mask. There's plenty of hand sanitizer. They have social distancing markers. They give you a stylus, a pen that is disposable after you sign your form. The stylus allows you to pick on the electronic board. So from that standpoint, it's safe. And I think, obviously there are a lot of people that are a little bit weary. They respect the virus, and they want to be able to have the ability to vote as a mail-in absentee vote. And our local Shelby County Election Commission has done a good job of getting those out.
In what ways have you continued to collaborate with your members on your team, even though everyone is separated?
Well, that's a very good question. We like to say here at the city of Germantown, City Hall may be physically closed, but we are open for business, and we are providing all those premium services and those services that we have to have each and every day that sometimes we take a little bit of, advantage that we don't think about them all the time. We take them for granted, and that would be like our water system, our sewer system, all those things, fire, police, EMS services, all the work that clerks do to process payments and different things. Those things are being done with folks here in a very limited capacity at City Hall. Then everyone else that can work remotely from home is doing so. We haven't missed a beat from an efficiency standpoint or a service delivery standpoint. And our priority here in Germantown, one reason why our COVID-19 numbers are very stable in this part of the county, where we're seeing some of our northern suburbs in Shelby County having spikes in cases in what some people are calling the third surge. We've been very stable here because people have joined together in the Germantown Fighting Together campaign. You see our mask on our horses around town. You see our entry-level banners in our gateways. You see our pole banners in our central business district. And of course, we have masks, T-shirts, signs, the I Heart Germantown with the little mask over the heart. And so it has created this sense of we're doing it together. Your question about City Hall, we are providing great services, and we're doing so in a seamless approach.
Well, Mayor Palazzolo, thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule to talk with us today.
It's always good to be with you, Kaitlyn. Thank you.
Whether you are voting by mail or in person, this election year is pivotal for the future of the city, the state, and the nation. And remember, the next generation of voters is watching. I look forward to having a say in the future of our country when I vote for the very first time in 2022. For more information on our programming, please check us out on the web at GHS-TV.org, where we are streaming live 24 hours a day. You can also check us out on Facebook and Twitter. I'm Kaitlyn Poindexter. On behalf of my co-host, Madisyn Ricks, and all of us here at GHS-TV, thank you for watching Crosstalk, and I hope to see you again.